very sunny Barrack Square here on Martlesham Heath. We hope that the sun will continue, keep you warm. But thanks very much everybody for coming. Absolutely a beautiful afternoon for this. Our band this afternoon is, as usual, Martlesham Brass, conducted by Adam Cable. And we thank them for coming here once again and giving us our music. I'm going to ask them now to play the March of the RAF, and we'll introduce the 356 ATC from Felixstowe. Thank you, Adam. Once again, we have the Kesgrave Parachute Detachment of the Suffolk Army Cadet Force. And we will play a nice piece of music that you'll all recognise, I'm sure. Adam. Parade, standard is, standard bearers, order standards. Our service once again this afternoon is being taken by the Vicar of Martlesham, Reverend Tate, beside me here. Also taking part in the service this afternoon is Mr. Richard Barker, our President, who I have to thank for cleaning the memorials, looking after those for another year's service here. The 356 ATC Felixstowe, thank you for coming. Kesgrave Parachute Detachment, which we've just seen march on. And representing the RAF, of course, our friend Wing Commander Phil Nicholson once again this year. And the USAF, we welcome back once again Colonel Mark Girio back to this country. Lovely to see him, and Elaine, his wife, as well. Beautiful. Thanks very much for coming, folks. Representing Suffolk Constabulary are Sergeants Kyle Scott and Sergeant Sterling Yateman, Mr. Andrew Hunt, who's representing the industrial estate here, the Royal British Legion, of course. We couldn't have a service like this without the Royal British Legion, the RAFA Association, the Aircrew Association, including the Air Gunners, Mr. Rod Caird, Ipswich Piping Society, the Iron Crows, down below here, along with, of course, the Black Shooks, the 1st Martlesham Scout Group, Martlesham Guides and Rangers, and Mr. Mike, whose surname I've sadly forgotten, but representing Martlesham Parish Council. That's Mike. So anyway, folks, apologies, we have no apologies. Refreshments afterwards, if you wanted to join us, we are over in the church hall, and teas and coffees will be served along with some biscuits. If you have one of these, a mobile phone, perhaps you'd like just to turn it off or make it silent, please. Nothing worse than perhaps one going off in the middle of the silence. And again, once again, we have the Royal British Legion collection boxes down here on the edge of the square there. So if you have forgotten to put some money in the box, you haven't lost the opportunity, folks. Now there. So please use the boxes if you have some loose coins. Right, Mr. Richard Barker.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for organising this remembrance service once again this year. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you, to the young and to the not so young, for this remembrance service at this remarkable place, historic place, Martlesham, where for so many years the development of so many aspects of military aircraft was undertaken, and so much of what they were trying to achieve was tested here. The memorials before you are a poignant symbol, recognizing the contributions, the courage, and the sacrifices of sadly so many, not only from our country, servicemen and women, but also those from across the world, from the Commonwealth, from the United States of America, exiled forces who joined us here to fight and to defeat evil in the last World War. These memorials stand by us and with us, and in our remembrance, we pay tribute to and honor with gratitude and deep respect all those men and women who daily risked their lives and sadly so often gave up those lives in the cause of our freedom. And these memorials provide a continuing focus for our remembrances of more recent conflicts, equally devastating for those engaged in them, who with courage and with fortitude faced the same risks. And we now remember those men and women who have continued to fight and to overcome evil. And we honor them with gratitude and respect in our remembrances. And in doing so, we remember with equal honor and respect the silent heroes, the families for whom remembrance is a daily sadness, as they seek to cope with the loss of a loved one who did not return home to them. And we also remember those families who, although united, have loved ones who bear the scars of conflict. And we acknowledge that the families provide such loving support, which is a great comfort to those who suffer and continue to suffer following the exercise of their duty on our behalf. We stand by them, we stand with them in our remembrance. It is an honour to be involved with the Martlesham Heath Aviation Society because I see firsthand, through their many activities and functions, that the Society holds out its hands to so many veterans and many families, both here in Martlesham, elsewhere in our country, and indeed abroad, to those in the United States of America, in Commonwealth countries and elsewhere. But wherever those veterans and those families live, the message that we give is always the same. We stand by you, we stand with you. You are not alone in your remembrances. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank each and every one of you for being here today, because each and every one of you stands by and stands with the other in remembrance, whether that remembrance is national or international, or, as I know for many, a private, personal remembrance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Reverend Tate.
Good afternoon, everybody. I stand here again slightly daunted at the prospect of speaking to this group about remembrance. The reason being that for me, the closest I ever came to a war was watching it on television, and I've never even been in a cadet force, let alone served. Yet today is still desperately important. Despite the world wars which these memorials here principally remember, war has not gone away. Many of us, some of you, were not around. For many, including the Scouts and the Cadets, the Gulf War, the first one in 1991, is something that you read about in history books. Remembrance, though, if it is anything, must be comprehensive. Our remembrance is not just of 2 world wars, but of the countless other conflicts that have gone on around the world. Our remembrance goes beyond that, as we remember emergency services, the fire brigades, police and ambulance staff, support services such as the many chaplains to forces, and not least the millions of civilians who died as a result of war and terrorism. We remember today the London Underground, the Twin Towers, Northern Ireland, as well as Iraq and so many other areas of conflict. Remembrance is comprehensive. It's been said that people are the sum of their memories. Today is, in part, the memories that we bring with us. Some of you bring memories of active service. Some of you bring memories of those you have loved and lost. Some of you bring memories of being a civilian during wartime. Some of you bring a long commitment to peace and to working for peace. Each of us brings different memories and thoughts to our act of remembrance, which helps to make it more comprehensive. Some of you may have lived through the Blitz. Some of you served in the forces. Many here maybe will remember when nowhere on mainland Britain was safe from IRA bombs, Guildford pubs, Harrods, the Old Bailey and so on. We all know the closeness of current terrorist bombs. Whatever your memories of war and conflict, we bring them here with us today. Today we cannot hide from that which we might choose to forget at other times. Today we all bring very different and diverse memories, and with these memories we also bring different and complex emotions. It's very easy to romanticise memories of war, especially for those of us who never lived through it. Many films turn to humour that which was devastating, Dad's Army makes it look funny, almost comical, as if we'd like to have been there. The nostalgia industry produces cookery books encouraging us to think what it would have been like during the rations. The Blitz can make us think of camaraderie and singing songs deep on the London Underground while we wait for the bombs to fall. We can think that people might have enjoyed it. And of course it wasn't like that. The horrors of the Blitz led to huge destruction. Cathedrals like Coventry and Dresden destroyed. The loss of current people's houses. For those of us who never lived through the Blitz, it's impossible to imagine what it was like to emerge from air raid shelters and find whole streets destroyed. And sadly, many people misunderstand what today is about. We're not here to glorify war or the supremacy of this or indeed any country. We're not here to defend the cruelty and agony of warfare and terrorism. We're not here to justify the armed forces or the establishment. We're here to remember all of those people, of whatever country, who've died in the pursuit of freedom and good. We're here to give thanks to God for their lives given for the freedom of many countries around the world. And we're here to acknowledge publicly and before God that countless people have given their lives for us, for our freedom and for others and their freedom. And we're here to pray for all who suffer and have suffered as a result of war. Particularly those of us who, like me, are too young to have a personal memory of war, need to remember that these men and women gave their today for our tomorrow. Wherever there is a war or conflict, we're usually hopeful that it will be the last, that there will be no more war. But we are not free from war and the pain of war. And so our purpose today is to acknowledge that pain and to remember it, but also to thank God for the freedom that so many now enjoy because of the laying down of life by so many for this and many other countries, and to pray for peace. We thank God that those who lay down their lives for others, and as we read in the Bible of Jesus' words where he says, "No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." We acknowledge the example of Jesus in laying down his life for others. So as we stand here today in remembrance, I urge you all not to forget, but to remember well, to give to our loving God the hurt and pain and fear, and ask for his support and comfort, but also to pray for and work for peace, that the day will come when all can live together in harmony. A day spoken of in the Bible by the prophet Isaiah, who said, "God shall judge between the nations and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." And so I invite you all to join me in a short time of prayer. Let us pray for all who suffer as a result of conflict and ask that God may give us peace. For the servicemen and women who've died in the violence of war, each one remembered by and known to God, may God give peace. For those who love them in death as in life, offering the distress of our grief and the sadness of our loss, may God give peace. For all members of the armed forces who are in danger this day, remembering family, friends, and all who pray for their safe return, may God give peace. For civilian women, children and men whose lives are disfigured by war or terror, calling to mind in penitence the anger and hatreds of humanity, may God give peace. For peacemakers and peacekeepers who seek to keep this world secure and free. For all who bear the burden and privilege of leadership, political, military and religious, asking for gifts of wisdom and resolve in the search for reconciliation and peace. May God give peace. O God of truth and justice, we hold before you those whose memory we cherish and those whose names we will never know. Help us to lift our eyes above the torment of this broken world, and grant us the grace to pray for those who wish us harm. As we honour the past, may we put our faith in your future, for you are the source of life and hope, now and forever. Amen. We turn now to sing again, The Day Thou Gavest, which the band will lead.
I'd like to invite Wing Commander Phil Nicholson to address the parade. Thank you, Phil.
Today we join with thousands of people across the Commonwealth to pay tribute to those who fought and paid the ultimate sacrifice, serving their country. I think it is especially fitting that we stand here together with our representative of our closest ally, with whom we have stood shoulder to shoulder to defend freedom and liberty, and one I have the pleasure of working with on a daily basis. Standing here this year in front of these memorials to British and American service personnel is particularly significant, as this year marks the 80th anniversary of the start of World War II, and it is a deep honour to stand here and to meet veterans of that conflict here today. This war was a totally new form of conflict. Prior to this, war had been fought by a nation's military. But with the technological advances in air power, the concept of total war was born. Mass civilian casualties were suffered hundreds of miles away from the front line. The estimated death toll globally as a direct result of the war is over 50 million people. Over 30 million of these were civilians. Ultimately, however, wars are won by countries being prepared to use their military to stand up to tyranny and oppression, whatever the cost, and individuals being willing to sacrifice their lives for the good of humanity. During Britain and America lost over 800,000 service personnel, a mere generation after over 1 million British, Commonwealth and American personnel had made the ultimate sacrifice in the First World War. Of these World War II losses were 72 young Americans who perished while serving here at Martlesham Heath, many miles from home. Their job to escort the US bombers on their daylight missions over occupied Europe. The fact that the UK and the East Anglia region in particular still hosts US servicemen is testament to our continued willingness to protect our way of life. So while today we rightly give thanks and remember those who have paid the ultimate price to defend us, let us spare a moment to reflect on those who continue to defend our freedom around the globe. And let us spare a thought for the families of the fallen, because for every casualty there is a family who have to grieve and to live with the loss. And when we look at the names on war memorials such as the one behind me, or around the country in villages and towns, let us remember those are someone's loved one. That is why the act of remembrance is so important, to honour and give thanks for those who have fallen, to ensure the lessons of history are not lost, and to pass the message on to the next generation who hopefully will never have to experience what previous generations had to in order to preserve our peace and prosperity.
Thank you, Wing Commander. Before I ask Colonel Mark Cheerio to come and do an address, I'd like to share something with you that my wife found on the internet recently. It's taken from the Daily Herald, the 14th of June, 1946. It involves the 356 Memorial. It goes on to say, round a simple stone memorial on the heath at Martlesham, Suffolk, yesterday, the villagers wept as they paid homage to 72 Americans who flew away to fight and never come back. They were the fighter pilots shot down while Martlesham Heath RAF station was an American base during the war. These men held the affections of the countryside so securely that the 600 villagers sent a letter to the families of each dead pilot. They inserted each pilot's name with the last citation in a book now in the parish church. This, of course, was the 356 Roll of Honour. They built a memorial tower on the Martlesham Heath Parade Ground. They watched this memorial unveiled yesterday by the Lord Lieutenant of Suffolk, the Earl of Stradbroke, and saw the stars and stripes run up alongside the Union Jack. They heard Major General Irwin H. Edwards, commanding the United States Armed Forces in Europe, say, "Your gratitude is typical of the spirit of the British people." They heard the message read from General Eisenhower and the American ambassador. They saw the two air marshals, Sir James Robb and Sir Leonard Slatter, representing the RAF whose Typhoons shared the airfield with the Mustangs and Thunderbolts. And they watched with tears in their eyes as American airmen who had flown specially from Germany took up their stations by the memorial. Thank you. Colonel Cheerio, please, would you like to address the parade? Thank you.
Martin, I'd be remiss if I didn't start by saying that was very moving, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Cook for finding that. And especially like to thank you for putting on this event. What an outstanding venue and gathering. I'm privileged to come back again and be here and and join you in this event. So let's begin. It's a beautiful and sunny day to gather for this remembrance ceremony, and I'm privileged to present and represent from my nation and my military on this day of remembrance. Elaine and I cherish the opportunity to return to Martlesham Heath and greet our old, some new, and some emerging friends. We appreciate the community that's gathered, especially those connected to our veterans, the supporters of Martlesham Heath Aviation Society, the Brotherhood of Cyclists, the military cadets, the young cadets, the volunteer band, fantastic, and especially the young and the old who join us to remember. Thank you all. Together 2 years ago, we celebrated a centennial for this legendary Martlesham Heath airfield. Over those 100 years, this airfield and the men and women who served here made combat flying possible, with many innovative and engineering firsts. For example, radio and radars. The iPhone you have today would not be available to you without Martlesham Heath Airfield and the innovation and engineering that was done here. The middle memorial behind me reflects the sacrifice of so many of those inventors in defense of our freedom. We remember them today also. Last year I was deployed to the Middle East, and you gathered and prepared for the 75th anniversary of D-Day. What celebrations rang throughout the summer as the leaders from our allied nations walked on the blood-soaked and whitewashed beaches of Normandy. What histories were relived and retold in tearful BBC moments, riveting stories. Everyone loves a war story, especially one of personal sacrifice, where the hero hides his human frailty and leaps the surly bonds of earth to overcome outstanding odds. These outer two memorials behind me testified to such heroes. The legends like Sir Douglas Bader, who commanded formations of Hurricanes and Spitfires from this airfield to save England during the Battle of Britain. And he did so without either of his legs. But equally, these stones testify to the lesser-known heroes, like the 72 that Mr. Cook was just talking about from the U.S. Army Air Corps, the 356 Fighter Group, which are recorded in the Red Book at Martlesham Heath Chapel, or the thousands of other U.S. and British aviators, both officers and enlisted, that paid the ultimate price and are memorialized not only in the granite behind me, but here in the stained glass windows of your chapel and at my chapel at RAF Mildenhall. Whether documented in media, in stone, or in glass, the concept of gathering to remember our heroes goes back in time, well before Diamond or even 75th anniversary celebrations. Democracies have always honored their veterans. In the Greeks' golden age, the age of Sparta and Athens, the infamous General Pericles offered what many believe was the first and perhaps greatest Remembrance Day speech, certainly better than the speech that you're hearing right now. Although Pericles spoke 2,500 years ago, he still captures the reason that every generation remembers, the same reason that we gather in the sun today. He simply said, "To be happy is to be free, and to be free means to be brave." What these heroes leave behind us is not what is chiseled in stone monuments, but what is woven into the fabrics of our lives. That is those that remain. To be happy means to be free. To be free means to be brave. In 1919, the world created Remembrance Day, not to celebrate victory in the war to end all wars, but to remember what our dead and injured heroes accomplished, and how our veterans past and present are still impacting and weaving into our hearts today, so that we can be brave, free, and happy. Brave, free, and happy is the three monuments behind me. They embody brave, free, and happy. Brave, free, and happy is what all of us that wear or have worn the uniform hope is embodied in all the faces that we see. Brave, free, and happy is what I see in your faces, especially in the faces of the little kids gathered in the audience. Thank you. Thank you for remembering, brave, free, and happy. Godspeed.
Thank you very much, Mark, for those wonderful words. Parade! Attention! Standard bearers, carry standards. Those of you at the back can't quite see the memorials, but it's whoops. Okay, folks, we'll carry on. Everybody seems to be okay. Everybody's on a seat that needs to be on a seat. So we'll carry on with the service, folks. As I was saying earlier, it's quite poignant that as we heard Reveille and the last post and the bagpipes, that the sun is shining on all three memorials. I think that's quite a poignant moment and makes one really remember what we're all here for today. Right, parade, attention, standard bearers, carry standards. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. I propose, as the afternoon is cold, to miss out the Crimond, the 23rd Psalm. You'll forgive me for that, but I think it's cold, and a lot of our members now, we're getting a little bit older in age, and we feel now the sun is dipping down and it's getting cold. So we'll go to item number 24. Parade, attention, standard bearers, carry standards. Thank you all very much for attending, which started off as a nice warm afternoon, but has now got rather chilly. You can feel it in your bones. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And a reminder that there are some refreshments in the church hall if you'd like to join us. So let's ask the band to play, and the Suffolk Army Cadet Force perhaps will march off. Thank you. We'd like to thank the 356 ATC Felixstowe for being here today. And if the band plays, the 356 will march off. Thank you, everybody. Have a safe journey home. Thanks very much for coming, and thank you, the band. And don't forget, folks, we have the little red boxes here, Royal British Legion, if you'd like to pay with a few coins in the box. Thank you, everyone, and see you next year.